Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another scene interview here on the BFI YouTube channel. This week is all about BFI Flair 2025, the London LGBTQIA+ Film Festival. This is one of the world's most significant and long-standing queer film events in the LGBTQIA+ calendar, which will be running in person and online from the 19th to the 30th of March. My name is Tom Hermawan. I'm a BFI Film Academy Young Programmer, and I'm so excited to be joined today by Ragini Bhasin, director of the powerful short film Wrong Bathroom, which has been selected as part of the Shorts programme for this year's BFI Flair. Throughout her career as a writer-director, Ragini has received various accolades, including being selected for the 2021 BAFTA Newcomers programme, as well as being a senior director at Jubilee Media. Her most recent film, Wrong Bathroom, is a drama which follows a transgender student using the men's bathroom for the first time, touching on the complex pressures to fit in and find social acceptance. It has been selected as part of BFI Flair's Generation Now programme, a wonderful set of shorts exploring the experiences of young adults in the world today. It will be available to watch online, UK-wide, and completely free on BFI Player for the entire duration of the festival. To learn more about this incredible film, her journey as a filmmaker, and what it means to be part of BFI Flair 2025, please join me in welcoming Ragini Bhasin. Hi Ragini, how are you?
Pretty good. Thank you so much for having me and screening my film Wrong Bathroom at the festival.
Thank you so much for being here and congratulations on being selected. The film is amazing and it was so wonderful to watch and I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about it. So just for people that haven't had a chance to see it yet, could you give a quick introduction of yourself and of the film Wrong Bathroom?
Sure. My name is Ragini. I'm an Indian filmmaker based in Los Angeles. I've made a few short films so far, and I'm currently working on another short film that I'm going to be making through the AFI WW Plus program. And I'm also currently working on my feature film that I want to film in New Delhi, which is my home city. And Wrong Bathroom is a short film that I've made in Film Independence program called Project Involve a couple of years back. And it's a film about a trans teen who enters the men's restroom for the first time and is coaxed to behave like one of the boys.
So I know the screenplay was written by Nate Gualtieri and you
Yes.
just mentioned it a little bit, but how did you guys end up collaborating on this project as a writer and then director?
The program had different short scripts. It had 6 short scripts and 6 directors, and then we had to match with one script and one writer. Wrong Bathroom caught my attention from the logline. And even when it was in the process of being developed and the script was just coming to life, I was really drawn to the story and I was drawn to the writing and the predicament of the protagonist. And I messaged Nate that I really want to direct this short. Out of all shots, this is the one that is definitely my top pick. And I chatted with him and I gave some notes also on the script. And he liked my notes and he liked the vision that I was approaching the film with. And then at the end, I had to pitch 2 films because I would get one of the two, and Wrong Bathroom was one of them. And I made sure that that pitch is great. And my second pitch is good, but not good enough that I get that film because I really wanted Wrong Bathroom. So it was a little bit of a gamble, but I'm really glad that I could work on it and was chosen to be the director.
Nice. What sort of parts of the script or the themes was it that you were drawn to? Because there's a lot of similarities between this film and some of your previous films. You know, they touch on things like womanhood and family dynamics and periods, a lot of the same themes that are involved in Generation Now. So what was it that drew you to this film specifically?
I think the moral conflict that the protagonist faces is something that I was drawn to. I feel like we've all been in a position growing up in high school where we want to be who we are, but we also change who we are in order to fit in, especially with the cool kids. So I feel that was a very universal theme that I related to. I don't belong to the trans community myself, so I was more like an outsider trying to understand what that predicament would be. But I feel like somewhere it's a very universal theme that anybody can relate to. So I made sure that I find that relation with the film, but also handle the subject matter with care and with research. And of course, by collaborating with the writer and actor so that they can bring their take on the film as well.
I definitely think there's like sort of universal experience in there for any young person that will relate to, you know, the high school setting and the sort of the intimidation or the pressures to fit in. So what was first steps of the directing process after you read the script? And was it sort of difficult for you to be working on someone else's script? I know a lot of your previous films you wrote yourself. So was it sort of a different approach this time?
It definitely had its challenges to work with another writer, and I think I learned a lot of lessons that I was negligent of, like something that I did not imagine caring about as much actually was a bigger deal than I expected. It was like a big learning curve working with another writer. Having said that, I would love to do that again. I think it's the first time where you make a lot of rookie mistakes, and then when you understand how to collaborate with the writer, then it becomes the next time you work with another writer on a script written by them, it works well. So I think um, overall the experience was great, and I learned a lot. And Nate is an excellent writer, and he really, really knew the script even better than I knew for a long time because that's his baby, basically his product. So I think just making sure that we have enough meetings and we talk in depth about the script was essential, and that's something I did. I think something that I didn't do as much was share my vision on how I plan to direct it, and especially in terms of the visual language. And I think that's where we had a little bit of a disconnection, not in terms of performance in the theme or anything, but more of the visual language. So I think my biggest learning lesson is to really communicate that with the writer as well. I have worked with another writer previously for a short film at film school, but this was the first time that I was working with the writer professionally outside film school. So it was a really good experience, and I would love to do it again. Yeah.
And you spoke a little bit about the parts you liked and maybe some of the difficulties as well, or the things you wish you'd do differently next time. Do you have any advice for young filmmakers who are potentially looking for collaborators or collaborating on a film for the first time?
I think my biggest advice for collaborators, which is something that I'm also keeping in mind as I'm finding crew for my next short film, is that you both have to be on a similar page and should have similar taste and vision for the film. I think it's okay if you have like different taste in general, but at least when you are working on this project, you have a very similar approach to the film and in terms of how you envision the film, what the themes are, what the story is, everything. I think it's really important that everybody in your crew is making the same film and not everybody making a different film, because then it becomes a hodgepodge. I think for short films, it's okay. I think short films can be very difficult in a sense that you have a very short duration to tell a story. So if it's five key collaborators telling different stories, it just wouldn't resonate with an audience and wouldn't translate well. So I think my biggest advice would be to make the same film in terms of the story, the theme, the visual language, the sound, everything. I think that's the first advice. My second advice would be to really communicate with every department as much as possible before you go in production. I think when you're on set and you're making the film, there are hiccups and there are problems that are inevitable, and also problems that you cannot envision beforehand. But if you're prepared well in advance and you've communicated pretty well with every single department and you know what everybody's job is, they know what their job is, and you've included them in the creative process also, it makes the production way smoother. So I think that's very important to, and I know everybody says that it's very important to communicate, but really communicate about every moment, every shot, every scene, every motivation. Everybody should be on the same page when they're on set so that there's no confusion. And
And
then there's also possibility that you can have some pleasant surprises on set that improve the film. But I feel if you're not prepared, then you cannot embrace those pleasant surprises that can make the film even better when it actually is in action.
and carrying on with what you said about collaboration and communication, Benny Zilk delivers an amazing performance as Gabe, the lead character. And that must be a massive part of the film as well, just as much as the writer and director, making the same film as you said. So what was the
Yeah.
casting process? How did you know Benny was the perfect person for that role?
We had a casting director who was super helpful, who brought a lot of teenagers and also some older people who were playing teenagers to audition. I think the moment we all saw Benny, the actor who played Gabe, he just seemed to get the character and just felt like the character. It didn't even feel like he was acting, it felt like he was being himself. He was very vulnerable, he was very um, right for the role. So during the casting process, I think it was easy to tell that, okay, this person doesn't feel right. And there were a couple of pleasant surprises also where we were not expecting a certain version of the character, but when we saw the performance, we thought, okay, this can also work. But I think Benny just hit the right notes and felt like a character lived in, felt like a more real character. So that's how we cast him. And for the other boys, I think that was a harder process because we wanted to make sure that their chemistry, the two friends' chemistry, works well. And we didn't want something that felt like we wanted something where you can tell that they're friends, but it's not too obvious so that it doesn't play into like a stereotypical broy friendship. We wanted to feel a little bit more nuanced than that. And not sure if that translated on screen, but we wanted their friendship also to feel rich and we wanted there to feel like a power dynamic between the two friends as well.
I think nuance, the word you use, is perfect to describe this film. Um, the approach to sports and navigating bathrooms through a trans character is a very real experience, and a lot of young people, I think, will relate to that. But the way the film approaches that sort of narrative, I think you mentioned it earlier, it quite subverts the expectation of potentially there being some tension or bullying. And it's a lot more about exploring the toxic pressures to fit in for young people, which again, anyone can resonate to. So why do you think it was important to approach Gabe's story in that way, in the way that sort of subverts expectations?
I think by subverting the expectations of how the story progresses, we wanted to get in a little bit deeper of a young boy who's recently transitioned and how he navigates just young boyhood or the high school life. Um, Also, the film was based in Los Angeles, so we wanted it to feel more current with the demographics of a Los Angeles school, and I think it was important to just not scratch the surface with the film, but go a bit deeper and really explore what that experience would be for a trans kid who really wants to fit in with the other boys and wants to feel like one of the boys, but at the same time wants to protect his friend and be a good friend. How does he navigate that situation? And when I watched the film, I think a lot of audience members judge Gabe for telling on his friend and not being a good friend. But at the same time, I think we've all been in that situation where we've compromised on our morals in order to fit in, and we just want to be seen by the others, especially when you basically feel new to the boys club and you don't know what that is like, and you don't even know what the boys club holds. And it's possible that in the future, Cape just doesn't want to be associated with the boys. But at that time, he wanted that validation. And being just a young high schooler, he also wants to befriend them and be one of them. It's not like, oh, this is how he will be for the rest of his life. But I think it's you make so many mistakes and you have so many of those moral predicaments when you're in high school. So this was just one of those moments for Gabe.
I think the high school setting is a big part of the film and it will resonate a lot with young people, no matter how they identify. I think it will. It's a very universal
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, it's very
Um,
universal. I think we all have a story where we've not been ourselves in front of others and maybe later question that why did I behave like this or why did I act that way? But it's just such a normal experience of being a high schooler to really want to fit in. That's when you actually realize what fitting in is, and everybody makes mistakes.
and the film largely takes place in this one setting of the bathroom. How did you use that sort of location to bring a sense of tension and sort of almost claustrophobia in the film?
I'm really glad that the film was based in like one location in a bathroom, and we really looked for different bathrooms. We wanted something where we can be more dynamic with the blocking and we can really show the difference in the boys and show the distance between them, but also when they get closer together. We just wanted to experiment with that. So we found this bathroom in Pasadena at a college, and the moment we saw it, we were like, this is definitely the place we want to film in. It had high ceilings, it had a lot of stalls, it had a character. It doesn't typically look like a high school bathroom, but you can argue that this is like a little bit of a fancy high school and maybe it could be a private school. I think that's pretty ambiguous. So it worked to look like a school bathroom. The ceilings were actually much higher than what you see on screen, and we had to make it look a bit smaller so that it feels, like I said, more like a high school bathroom. But I think what was really important is that everything is set in one location. There's a lot of dialogue. How do we make the blocking more dynamic and how do we make it richer? So that's why we needed a bathroom that gives us the space to set up a dolly, to be dynamic with the shots, to have a lot of movement, to have wide static shots and close-ups. And this bathroom seemed to offer all of it.
There's an amazing shot where you sort of pan over the bathroom stalls. Did you always plan on shooting that, or was it those high ceilings that sort of inspired that shot?
I wanted a shot like that, and because we had high ceilings, we could achieve it.
Oh, perfect. And also the way you frame characters, I found really interesting. You use a lot of the mirrors in the bathroom, and then you obscure some of the faces of the characters, especially the two other boys in the bathroom. And what was sort of the intention behind those decisions?
We wanted to see the two friends when Gabe looks at them for the first time, so we tried to hide their faces, but could feel their presence and feel their um, friendship before you actually see them. So we wanted the film to be from Gabe's perspective as much as possible. So we disguise their faces till he sees them. And then I think the film is a lot about reflecting on what you do and what you say and how you behave, and also about performative masculinity. Like, what does it mean to be a man or to be a boy? So there's a lot of reflection in the film, right? Like where you reflect at your choices, at how you behave, and how you perform in front of others. So that's why filming the reflection shots in the mirrors felt pivotal to tell the story, because that is also like a way that's a visual way of telling the story from Gabe's perspective, who has to reflect a lot on what he's doing, how he's behaving, and what it feels to behave in a certain way in order to fit in.
I think that definitely comes across, and it sort of answers my next question. But you talk about reflecting Gabe's sort of interiority and his perspective. And he's a lead character with maybe less dialogue than the other side characters. So was that sort of difficult to approach, sort of showing his perspective when there's less dialogue in the script?
I think that wasn't really as hard because Gabe is a character who wants to fit in with the other boys and is a character who's new in this world and wants to belong here, just wants to use the men's restroom with no trouble. And unfortunately, that's also not an easy experience for him because he is pressured by these boys indirectly to tell on his friend. And he sees that as an opportunity to actually befriend them. And there's a lot of like power dynamic in the scene. So yes, Gabe is a character who has to reflect and is reflecting throughout the film. But it worked having less dialogues because he was an outsider looking in. So it made sense that the other characters were talking more and were talking at him. But I think at the same time, it's a lot about how Gabe reacts to them and how he behaves with them. And at the end, he finally has like a way up by finding this wallet of one of the characters and giving it back to him and then asking for the number for the ID to also show like, oh, I'm also one of you. So I think it worked well because Gabe did have that one up at the end, even though he was just trying to observe and see how he can fit in and how he should respond and how this could be like his chance to feel more comfortable in the men's restroom in the future and not hide when nobody's there and just like run into the stall so that nobody sees him and just feel more comfortable and at ease in a place that is a very private place where you need to be yourself and feel free. So if you're not comfortable using the restroom, that's just a very sad reality.
I do think that progression in Gabe is very obvious throughout the film, even though it's a simple setting and simple narrative, like you said. Um, I know the film premiered at 2024 Palm Springs Short Fest, and then it screened at other queer film festivals like Reeling and Mardi Gras Film Festival. Could you just talk a bit about your experiences with festivals like these?
Yeah, we feel very grateful that the film is playing festivals. It premiered at Palm Springs Short Fest, which was in a really great block, and I enjoyed all the other films that played at that block. And Palm Springs is a really great film festival for short filmmakers, and you really watch some incredible films. So it was great to go to that festival, and the Q&A went really well, and the audience was very engaged and intrigued to know more about the film. The other two film festivals we unfortunately couldn't attend, but hopefully the screening went well, and we wish we could have been at the festival in London, but it's just really far from Los Angeles. But we're just hoping to play more festivals. We're hoping to reach a wider audience. I think politically also we're in such a time that this film, and politically also we're at such a time that this film feels a little bit more urgent for the audience to watch. And we hope that it can bring awareness about just the issues of trans people using their restroom and not having something that's such a basic need be political.
I think queer film festivals like these are such an important way to do that, like you said. Um,
100%.
what mhm. What drew you to BFI Flair specifically as a place to screen your film?
I do enjoy a lot of the films that BFI Flair plays. I remember one of my favorite films from 2 years back called Joyland. It played at BFI Flair Film Festival as well, and I just absolutely love this film. And I know BFI Flair has a really great selection of films, so we were very honored and very ecstatic when we heard that we'd be screening our film also. It just validates like the quality of the film, and we feel like we've done something, we've made something that could draw the audience's attention if it draws BFI Flair's attention. So we're very honored to play here.
And it's screening as part of Generation Now, which is a program of short films exploring the lives and experiences of young people. Have you had any sort of reactions or responses from young people or young queer people since you started screening the film?
I think the younger generation definitely resonates with the film more, especially queer people. I know my husband's boss really wanted to watch this film because their kid identifies as trans, and the film really resonated with them. So I think just representation is so important. Um, just to see somebody on screen who can represent a snippet of your life, or maybe a character that you can relate to some extent, is just so important. So I think the reaction from the young people is really important because they are the ones who find a more common ground or a common relation. I also think it's important for the older generation to watch the film so that they can understand the younger generation a little bit better.
And I think it's screening on BFI Player, so it's free to watch in the UK. It's going to connect with so many more LGBTQ audiences, so that's going to be amazing.
That's
Um,
great.
what piece of advice would you give to young filmmakers who maybe want to make a film like this or get started in the industry?
I think my biggest advice would be just to keep educating yourself, like keep watching what is what the audience is watching and what is in the zeitgeist of the film world, and also being up to date with like with the scripts that are being sold and auctioned or whatever. I know it feels endless and it feels like how where do you start? But I think just even watch if you're making a short film, then before you make the short film, just watching a new shot every day or once in 2 days is also so important. I think I get some of the best ideas when I'm watching other people's work because it really makes me reflect on how I'm approaching my film. And this is something that I was asked at a previous festival, just the one advice that I would give filmmakers. And I remember saying that, and I would repeat here, is just to be a little bit delusional. Because if you're too practical, then this just doesn't make sense to do this for a living. But a little bit of delusion, I think, really helps to keep going and knowing that you can get there and you can just continue doing making good films. And another advice would be just to connect with the characters, with the themes, with the story, and especially if it's a short film, just to simplify it to one core theme. And how do you tell that story in the best way possible?
So, final question, what other projects do you have coming up? Is there anything we can look forward to in your work?
Totally. I'm working on a short film which I'm developing at AFI Plus program. It's American Film Institute's directing workshop for women. It's a story about It's a film that's set in a dystopian world where women, instead of lactating, they bleed from their nipples. So the hospital system has collapsed, and then several women are admitted in the hospital for days because they're not lactating, they're bleeding. And Slowly, once they start lactating, they're discharged from the hospital after days or sometimes even months. So it centers on our protagonist whose bleeding is reducing, but at the same time, when she starts lactating, her pain immensely increases. It's like unbearable. So she needs to fight the hospital system in order to keep her at the hospital because she still needs care, even though her disease or her problem now is more invisible. So it's about just women being dismissed for their pain and not being taken seriously when they are suffering.
That sounds like an incredible film. I can't wait to see that. That
Oh,
sounds very
thank you.
exciting.
Thank you. I'm
Um,
really excited for it too. And I'm also working on a feature which is based in New Delhi, which is a thriller romance about two acid attack survivors. And it's told from the perspective of the female survivor who goes on a date with her friend, who's also a survivor. And throughout the night, she's still processing her past trauma and is trying her best to trust this man who could start her romantic life again. But at the same time, because of her past trauma, she's unable to truly trust him and is very, very wary of his intentions. So that's a feature film that I would want to film in India, hopefully in the next 3 years. So that's another project that I'm working on.
that's incredible. And I'm sure it's so inspiring for the audience watching to see you make that jump from shorts to features as well.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I've had an amazing time talking to you about this film, and thank you for sharing your filmmaking advice for the audience. It's been so insightful. And congratulations once again for being selected for BFI Flair 2025.
Thank you so much. And thank you for asking such great questions and asking in depth. I'm very pleased to be here, and I hope that it reaches an audience. And yeah, I'm very excited to stream Wrong Bathroom at BFI Flair.
So everyone watching, make sure you check out Wrong Bathroom on BFI Player, which will be screening UK-wide and completely free as part of the Generation Now program from the 19th to the 30th of March. I cannot recommend it enough. And thank you all for joining us for this scene interview. Please join us next week where my fellow BFI Film Academy young programmer, Oshin Andrew, will be interviewing Ramon Sewake about their film Wait, Wait Now, which is also part of the Generation Now Thoughts program. Thank you all for watching, and thank you once again, Ragini, for joining us. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you.